Some inventions begin with a
Decades
triumphant
of tireless
eureka.
work.
This story begins with a clatter. In 1943, inside a U.S. Navy research lab, an engineer named Richard James was wrestling with a very unglamorous problem: how to keep sensitive equipment on warships from shaking apart when ocean waves slammed against steel hulls. He experimented with coils of steel springs designed to absorb vibration. The work sounded about as thrilling as reading a financial report until one spring slipped off the table. It hit the floor. Yet instead of lying still like any respectable object, it bounced. Then it leaned. Then it began, stepping down a stack of books nearby. Picture the scene. An engineer lost in vibration equations suddenly watches a piece of metal walk. No batteries, no wheels, no magic. Richard froze for a few seconds, probably asking himself, what did I just see? That moment was an accident worth millions. Richard took the coil home. He set it on the stairs and tried again. It kept walking step by step, not tumbling wildly, not rolling at random, a rhythmic motion that felt almost intentional. His wife, Betty, saw it and instantly understood what Richard had not yet considered. This wasn't a naval component. This was a toy, a coil of steel that could make children stare in amazement. A few years later, in 1945, they named it Slinky, a word meaning smooth and graceful. The price? $1. In 1945, a dollar was roughly equivalent to more than $10 today. Cheap enough that parents didn't hesitate, yet valuable enough for kids to treasure. That November, at the Gimbel's department store in Philadelphia, Richard stacked 400 Slinkies on a shelf and demonstrated them himself. He placed one at the edge of a table, released it,
I believe we have a winner.
and let it walk downward. 90 minutes later, the shelf was empty. 400 pieces vanished, not stolen,
Redefined.
but sold out. In less than the length of a short film,
new understanding
a faulty
of the
spring
universe.
became a sensation. Imagine how that must have felt. An engineer,
watch
once
closely
buried
as
in
it goes over the
anti-vibration
edge.
devices
See how
for
it
warships,
stretches.
suddenly stood
Yes,
among laughing
very
children,
good.
fascinated by a bouncing coil of steel.
Keep
He
your eyes
hadn't
on the
invented
light.
a jet
See
engine.
how it defies gravity.
He hadn't built
higher
radar.
and higher it goes.
He was selling a spring, and this was where the story took a sharp turn. Money flowed in. Slinky became a craze. American children in the post-war years, an era hungry for
that
joy,
is so
after long
cool.
darkness clutched
Look
the
at
little
it
steel
go.
coil as a symbol of peace. Sales skyrocketed. Richard went from a salaried engineer to a millionaire entrepreneur. Then he changed course. During the 1960s, Richard gradually distanced
that was
himself from the
fast.
business. He became involved with a religious sect in Bolivia. He withdrew money from the company.
There we
He
are.
left his
Pleasure
family,
doing
Betty,
business
and their
with you.
6 children, and moved to
To
South
our shared
America,
success, Richard.
believing he was pursuing a higher calling beyond toy manufacturing. The irony was hard to miss. The man who created a toy that made millions of children laugh walked away from his own family. The company teetered on the edge. Finances tangled. Slinky, an icon of joy, was about to become the victim of a very adult decision. That was when the real turning point arrived. Betty James, a woman left behind with 6 children and a struggling company. No MBA, no venture capital, just years of experience beside her husband and a simple belief: as long as children had stairs, Slinky had a future. Betty took control. She restructured production,
Today
kept prices
marks a
low so
significant
everyone could
turning
afford one,
point for this organization.
and pushed advertising
We
forward
will
with the
no
catchy
longer
jingle,
stand by
"It's Slinky."
silently.
It's Slinky, echoing across American television. As TV became the center of the living room, Betty transformed Slinky from a physical toy into a cultural icon. Sales rebounded.
We can connect with families
Millions
nationwide.
were sold each year. A
And
slender steel
rolling.
coil stretching roughly 20
Everyone
meters,
knows it's
if fully
Slinky.
extended the
And
height of a
cut.
6-story building, could fit
Perfect.
neatly in a child's hand. Physics shrank into laughter. Richard passed away in Bolivia in 1974. He never returned to run the company. Betty, however, turned Slinky into one of the best-selling toys of the 20th century. So when you see a Slinky walking down the stairs, remember that it is more than a coil of steel. It is the result of a slipped hand. A quiet afternoon in a laboratory. A triumphant debut at Gimbels. A dramatic departure. And a woman who refused to let the story end halfway. Have you ever ignored a fall in your own life because you assumed it was just an accident?
Yes, Miss James.
Maybe
We
it was
are already
quietly
planning
stepping
to
down the
increase the
staircase
shifts.
of history. Next time you notice something broken behaving a little strangely, don't rush to throw it away. You might be standing in front of the next $1 million fall. And if you're curious why a simple steel coil can walk so smoothly, the physics behind it is even more fascinating than the James family drama. But that's a conversation for another coffee.